Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. I hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. Welcome back to VALORANT News. Plenty of updates today, including 100T Asuna with some pretty strong words for their opposition in the North American side, stating that only themselves and Cloud9 he's particularly confident in right now, and it's a silly decision for these other teams to wait so long before starting to practice. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. First of all, a crazy glitch in the Matrix here. So you guys might have seen this last night, but ShahZaM. So this is one of the only spots on any map that's actually named after a player. It's a thing that happens in multiple esports. You've got spots named after Olofmeister, you've got spots named after NBK and others, and this spot is known kind of colloquially as ShahZaM. Now, ShahZaM means in Latin under the rose. I've got sub rosa, pretty self-explanatory stuff, and I guess ShahZaM thought pretty cool name. That's why he's had this for 8 or so years. Now, it's just been noticed here last night, effectively on Ascent, that this spot known as ShahZaM has literally a rose on the wall above it. Now, this does seem to be some straight up Illuminati type stuff, and obviously when you first see this you think, oh damn, surely the developers knew this spot was ShahZaM, therefore they added it in. But actually, if you go back and see the footage from a couple of years ago when the game first came out, this rose design and pattern has always been here. So it's kind of crazy to think about. Maybe in a way it was almost the other way around, where ShahZaM being kind of this spot being called ShahZaM was more likely just because there happened to be a rose on the wall above it. But yeah, kind of one of these crazy things. It's almost like a Mandela effect thing. And if you guys follow Call of Duty, there was this case a couple of years ago in the World War II season where the pros noticed that there was all these trees on this one particular map that they'd never noticed before, and they were like, hang on, these trees weren't here all along. Turns out they were there all along, but people never really noticed it until someone mentioned it, and then all of a sudden they were like, hang on a second, yeah, that's really weird. So yeah, I don't know, I thought that was kind of some crazy Illuminati type stuff, to be honest, because this is, as I say, one of the only spots on any map really that's named after a player, and it just so happens that there's the perfect kind of graffiti to go along with it. So yeah, don't know what you guys think about that. Is it just pure like we're living in a simulation? I think probably that's what ShahZaM thinks as a result of this one, to be honest. Now, yesterday we saw that China has now approved Valorant and it's now allowed over there. It's got some different name like Fearsome Conquest or something like that. I don't exactly know what they're calling it in Chinese, of course. But as Bo says, who said only 30 teams? So this, of course, referring to the kickoff event in Sao Paulo, where there shall be 10 teams from the Americas, 10 teams from EMEA, and then 10 teams from the Pacific region, all the partner teams in the world. Come together, one team wins. Exciting stuff. Probably the biggest event we're going to have in Valorant history, to be honest, because I don't imagine they're going to do this again in future seasons. This is kind of a kickoff to the franchise partnership league. Now, as he says, who said only 30? So we might be adding more, and then he comes out with some Chinese here in the replies. So this is a question to me, just because, of course, they just came in, right? And Edward Gaming and FPX now, they've got FPX Zuquel, whatever it's called. They should just get rid of that, because I'm pretty sure FPX only have one team nowadays. So potentially those top 2 teams from China or whatever might be invited as well to the kickoff. Could be something else going on, but you know, this aligns quite nicely with the idea that China Valorant gets approved, and then a day later, rumors have it that there's going to be more teams attending the kickoff in Sao Paulo than there were before. Aligns a fair bit with China getting some representation. But if that is the case, like obviously only the partner teams are getting invited here, and now all of a sudden China is getting invited as well. Does that mean that the Pacific League is going to go from 10 to 12 teams? Are they going to invite 2 Chinese teams to the Pacific League? Like, you know, because of course, if you invite the 2 Chinese teams, let's just say as an example, to the kickoff in Sao Paulo, yet you say, no, you're not allowed in the actual league itself, it's like, well, hang on a second, this is meant to be a tournament for the partner teams, but yet these guys are getting invited but aren't in the partnership league. I don't know, but enjoy your thoughts on that in the comment section below. We could have some more updates, and I'm sure we will hear over the coming days. And yeah, as many are mentioning, maybe EGG, Edward Gaming, and the FPX lineup might well be invited here and could potentially get a partnered spot in the league. Would be an exciting prospect for that scene. Let's talk Sentinels. Firstly, Sentinels Booger, because last night they confirmed that their entire Fortnite team is gone. So Booger's gone out of there, and Rob Moore even confirms, the CEO, that you know, they're looking into the future and they don't really believe that Fortnite has offered what they want, so they're no longer going to be pursuing competition in Fortnite. I don't watch any Fortnite competitive anymore. I watched some of the tournaments back in the day, but it's absolute chaos to even try and deal with from a competitive perspective. So I'm not massively surprised that you know, Fortnite competitive hasn't really turned out to be it. So they're moving on from that. Now, does that mean that they have more budget elsewhere? Is this a decision more like, you know what, just a sensible business move? Is this more like, you know what, 2023 going to be a tough year for a lot of businesses, advertisers, sponsors, might not be so ideal for many of these teams, so therefore, you know, they're trying to back up their spending? Or is this opening budget budget elsewhere, just because we don't really know where, you know, Fluorescent, formerly of Misfits, where she's going to go. There's been some wonderings as to whether some of these top NA teams are going to sign challengers rosters, right? We know Cloud9 White is gone. We wondered whether a Sentinels or 100 Thieves might step into the Game Changers arena. Maybe they have the budget for that now with this, or maybe that's not on their agenda regardless. Now, speaking of Sentinels, as Psycho says last night, coach of the Sen roster, Bold is in the building, and that, of course, be referring to this man, Sacy, who has finally arrived over there from Brazil. So his visa is sorted. He's now out there. He went from Mexico to Los Angeles. Now he's in the Sen headquarters having a great time. Now, Pancada is, I don't believe, there yet. And this is a bit of an issue just for Sentinels because, like, I don't believe Ardis is necessarily... Now, they've talked with Ardis, the NRG guys, but they haven't necessarily got their practice grind on yet. Sentinels still have to get the Pancada stuff sorted before they can probably do that. Now, in fairness, they can practice with Pancada on bad ping and not there in person. They probably might be forced to relatively soon into the new year because they've got to get some practice in with their new lineup and with their new roles and compositions, but other teams have been practicing for a long time now. One, of course, amongst them being 100 Thieves and Asuna. So this was an interview with Inven Global that actually happened before the Red Bull Homegrounds event. So this happened early December before they went on to win that event with Cloud9 being runners-up, and this is what he said about the teams and the practice they have got. So many interesting things are mentioned here in this article, talking about you know, big changes they have seen, the same environment, same mentality since Sean Gares has gone, his values still in the team, very excited for their possibility. And this I thought was the spiciest thing though. A lot to be excited about in 2023. What teams stand out to you the most that are competing? So I guess you'd expect him to say, oh yeah, Sentinels, what a team they've built. Oh yeah, NRG, the former OpTic core, they're going to be really strong. Cloud9 have got yay. But he basically says, yeah, there's only two teams on his radar. And got to say, this is pre-Red Bull Homegrounds. So this is right at the start of this month where we knew all the teams, but nonetheless, there were only a couple of teams that were practicing. And obviously, his point here is even exacerbated further by the time we are now a month on from these statements. So he thinks the best teams are Cloud9 because they've been practicing since as early as us. Us and Cloud9 probably. Both of us have been practicing since November, and no other team is doing that. Every other team is taking a break, and I think that's pretty silly. So he doesn't even mention Sentinels, Evil Geniuses, or even the NRG team because he's like, well, these guys haven't been practicing, so, you know, they're not going to be much of a threat. Now, maybe Asuna believes that this early practice advantage that 100 Thieves and Cloud9 to a certain extent have is going to be massively important in their run through to the new season, which is probably true. Now, FNS doesn't seem to agree. He said a few days ago that it's going to take them about a week to catch up to where 100 Thieves are, so he reckons 1 week of practice with the new lineup is enough to get them back to that same level. But, I mean, look, maybe 1 week of practice gets NRG to being 80 or 90% as prepared as 100 Thieves are, but they're not going to be as prepared as 100 Thieves are. So, I mean, yes, look, the meta has changed and it's difficult to adapt to, but, you know, Asuna seems pretty convinced here that what they're doing is not a good idea, these teams. Now, at the same time, do they really have that much choice in the matter? Because, of course, getting artists out to the States, not an easy thing to do. Getting Pancada and Sacy sorted from a visa side, also not an easy thing to do. So, you know, they can practice online, but not being there in person with the ping differential, it's never going to be ideal practice, but maybe he's thinking, you know what, they should have just done it anyway to get some reps in with the new team, rather than letting themselves fall further behind. Because going into the new season, 100 Thieves are going to be, like, in terms of North American favorites, I would have 100 Thieves as their best North American team going into the Sao Paulo Kickoff. You can't really say otherwise. They've won an event at the Red Bull Homegrounds, they are the most practiced and prepared team probably in the North American scene as it stands, and despite the other teams maybe having more firepower on paper, they haven't necessarily put that down into practice yet, and that's why Asuna doesn't even consider those teams in his rankings of the best teams in North America as it stands. So Evil Geniuses, of course, they're not quite in that conversation with the Sentinels and the NRGs of the world, but I'm also a further confirmation here that indeed Demon 1 is getting signed to their 10-man roster. We saw this rumor the other day, right, that I think it was Toast's team, that we don't know what it's going to be called, if it even is going to exist, but I think they've signed players. But he said that there was a certain individual that had been kind of stolen from under their nose, and we thought that that was probably going to be Demon 1, one of the more promising players in Tier 2, and now EG have said, you know what, we're going to have him. So I think they played these guys in a scrim at Toast Esports, and EG said, yeah, that guy's pretty good, let's get him onto our 10-man team. That's what they're doing. They've, of course, got like an 8-man team, they've now got a 9-man team maybe, so maybe a further couple of confirmations to come there, but an exciting prospect for sure that may well get a chance this year if the starting EG team fails to deliver. And also just to say something quite remarkable, but nonetheless pretty much true, that for many NA players in the North American side, of course, for Tier 2 in the Challengers world, if they fall short in about 15 days time, their season might be done. Now, it's not technically 15 days, it's more like, 23 days, because there is, of course, we know the first qualification, and then if that goes wrong, then there's another last chance qualifier for the final 2 teams to get into challenges. But still, in less than a month, many top NA players, if they fail to qualify, might have to call it a day. Like, let's say Stewie's team, Stewie, Brax, Wardell, let's say those guys don't qualify, as they probably aren't expected to be honest. They might well do, but let's say they don't. Like, what do? Their season is done. Stewie 2K's run into Valorant has basically come to an end immediately, and he's got to wait an entire another year until he can give it another go. Unless, I suppose, he can prove himself worthwhile enough, or any other player in that category, to get picked up onto a tier 2 team where they want to make changes. So if you don't qualify, not necessarily the end of the world, but obviously pretty scary thing with no mid-season relegation or promotion situation that other leagues might indeed have. And just to close out with one quick thing here from Willminder, the top teams on Ascent during the 2022 internationals, just talking of Ascent here, of course, because we saw what happened a few minutes ago with Subrosa on Ascent, and Loud, DRX, and Leviathan, probably the teams to look for if you guys want to look at VOD. So very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.